Welcome to the Los Angeles Online Film Critics Society presents Film Critics Weekly. We're talking Dora the Explorer, scary stories to tell in the dark, the kitchen, and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Welcome to Los Angeles Online Film Critics Society presents Film Critics Weekly. We have a great panel for you this week with three great women who are joining me. My name is Ashley Menzel. You can find me at We Live Entertainment and on Twitter at Ashley G. Menzel. And we'll have our panelists introduce themselves and tell you where you can find them.
Yeah, I'm Jana Nagase, and you can find me in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my blog, Jana on Camera.
I'm Kit Bowen, and you can follow me on Twitter at The Movie Kit and also on screenpics.com.
I'm Lupe Haas. You can follow me on Twitter at Cinemovie. My website is cinemovie.tv. Or you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook.
Yay! So we have a lot to talk about this week. We have so many movies. I guess we're going to take a start with Dora and the Lost City of Gold, which is something that I didn't have the chance to see, but you guys have. So if you guys, anybody want to give a description of the story? And
No, you can.
All right, so Dora is a teenager now, and her parents send her away, unfortunately, to the city because they're off to their next adventure. And there we meet Diego, who you might not recognize from the show. He's, he's a little jaded now. Of course, he lives in Los Angeles. So eventually they go back to the jungle along with some few new friends, and they're out to find their parents who are in danger. So it's up to Dora.
Dora's parents, yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
awesome. So it's directed by James Bobbin, and it stars Isabelle Moner as Dora. So you guys want to talk about it?
I loved it. I do have a daughter. She's 20, but she was just a little too old for Dora. But I think that this just kind of captured the 8-year-old in me, because if I was 8 years old and 9 years old, I would have just ate this movie up. It's like Indiana Jones meets, wholesome, fun entertainment, very adventurous. Isabella Moner, is that how you say it? Moner. She is the cutest thing on the planet. Yeah. She completely carries the film. And they pay homage to the show. There's no question about it. But they do it in a very funny way, a lot of funny, clever, sort of irreverent ways. Like the very beginning where she goes, "Can you say delicioso?" like that to the camera, and then her parents are like,
"Oh, she's doing it again."
Yeah,
She's doing it again. She's gonna get over it.
Delicioso. Anyway, it was just a whole lot of fun for me, and I'm going to probably mispronounce the famous Mexican star who's
Eugenio
in it.
Derbez.
Yes, he
was also in Overboard, right?
Yes,
he was in Overboard.
Huge star in Mexico, right? Just like top of the line star. But he's so funny in this. There were some parts to it that I was like literally doubled over laughing, and all the kids in the audience that I was watching it with were just eating it up. So I really enjoyed this movie. I feel like it's something we need right now.
Oh yeah, I agree with Kit. It's kind of like an old-fashioned treasure hunt, and it was so innocent, and it was nice to put her in the city. Because I thought, I'm like, oh no, they're going to put her in the city. They're going to corrupt her. But it was a nice contrast because she's this positive, person among these jaded, self-absorbed teens. And so it was nice to see that dichotomy. And the fact how she plays it. Instead of playing the victim, she just turns it around on Diego, who tells her, can't you just be normal?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh. And that hurt her. She knew that her peers were thinking that of her. But once her cousin set in, she was heartbroken. So I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So,
she was very genuine. I think it was very unique. And then I love the way that she did everything, like the way that she talked. And then my son, on the first scene, he's 8, and he replied to her, "Delicioso." I was like, okay. But it was cute. Like, I think everything was cute. Eugenio was really good. I think he was a really good villain. I love it. Michael Peña as well, and Eva Longoria as the parents and everything. I think it's like I had so much fun watching, and like you said, it was like an homage, a tribute to the TV series.
Great. So we're going to give each movie we talk about today a grade from A to F. So, Lupe, what would you give Dora?
I give it an A. And remember, it's for families. So older people who go see this movie, you don't let me.
It's not for you.
It's not for you. It's for families.
Well, you know what? It is in a way because, you know, like I said, I was totally into it. It's a good story. It goes all the way through. You know, like she says, Dora goes to the city, but then of course she has to come back to the jungle to find her parents, and then she takes some of her newfound friends from Los Angeles who know nothing about the jungle. They come in with her on this adventure, so it becomes very much of an adventure, and it was there was a lot of beauty to it, and then like fantastical scenes, and they're coming upon an ancient city, all of that stuff. So that whole Indiana Jones feel to it, I just love it. It reminded me of those Disney live action movies that I used to love so much, like Swiss Family Robinson.
Before I give my grade,
I'm going to give it an A as well.
Okay, that's good. Before I give, I have a little issue with the CGI. There was the only thing that I didn't like it, that I fully love it. I loved the movie, but that was the only thing that I was like, I was a little bothered with.
Maybe that's why you get that at a minimum. Because there were boots and swiping.
And swiping.
It's all right. I got into it. It's okay. It didn't bother me.
I had a little problem, but everybody should check it out. Everybody, families, if you're single, if you're not, if you have kids or not, you should check it out.
And there's a map, and there's a backpack.
Yes.
I'm a map. Anyway, I kept saying that. I was sitting next to your husband. I'm going, I'm a map. He's going, shut up.
So what would your grade be?
A.
An A. Okay, so Dora gets an A from everybody on the panel.
And you should check it out.
And I will check it out.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, yeah,
It's
sure.
very important for not only for the Latino community, but for Hollywood. Because if it fails, they're going to say what they usually say with a female-led movie, people just don't want to go see a movie with female, leads.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really hoping this movie really works so that more movies are made, because I've never uttered so many Spanish surnames in my life.
Yes.
We're talking about a mainstream film. So
Yes.
it's really, really, really nice to see.
Yeah.
Awesome. So everybody make sure you check out Dora this weekend. The next one we're going to transition over to is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is based on the stories by Alvin Schwartz, I think it was. He did 3 books, and it's directed by Andre.
It's a Norwegian.
Norwegian, anybody?
Any Norwegians out there?
Overdall.
Just the main part is produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, and it's what we love is Guillermo del Toro. So it's produced by him. We have writers with Dan Hagman and Paul Hagman, I think the other one, along with Guillermo. So, Kit, you want to give a description of the story?
Sure. It takes place in the 60s, and it's a small town, and a group of high schoolers, it's a Halloween night. They go to this resident haunted house where apparently this woman was locked away, and she apparently killed kids by telling them stories and all this kind of stuff. And they're like trying to scare each other. But one of the one girl in the group, she takes this book of stories that this woman has written, Sarah, and she takes it out of the house. And then suddenly stories start happening and writing themselves, and whatever happens in the story, the person that they're writing about dies, or has something bad happen to them. So it's kind of trying to stop her from telling the stories. Stop telling the stories. So, yeah.
So, so this
Why don't you
cast...
start?
Okay.
She didn't like it that much.
Call me out.
Let's hear why.
Just call me out. So I have very strong feelings about child actors. They either make or break a film. And I think that was the problem for me with Scary Stories, is I think the actors in it were so unseasoned that they didn't sell the story enough. There were actually lines where Scott and I looked at each other and just laughed, like without even prompting each other. We just went like, oh my god, are they serious right now? And it's a shame, because I know they probably give their best. It's really cool visually, in my opinion. I love the books. I read them as a child. They still scare me to this day. But I think the best elements of it were those ones where you can see Guillermo del Toro's touches on it. I kind of would have rather seen the film either go the path of the house with a clock in its walls and be definitely for kids, or just go into the PG/R or PG-13/R and just get like the hard horror out of it. I think it's tried to straddle it too much to make it really effective. What do you think, Jana?
I didn't like it
Okay.
at all. The only thing that in this one I can say is the CGI. The monsters are fantastic, on the other hand. But the performances are not good. I didn't like it. I agree with you. And sometimes I felt kind of lost. And I couldn't believe it that Guillermo was like on it. Sometimes I forgot about, but Guillermo was on it. Should be better. Unfortunately, for me, it's like, no. He's a no.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
We're on the same side over here.
Boo, that side. No. Yeah, so I kind of knew already that Ashley didn't like it so much. So, I kind of went into it with a little, like, trepidation, like, oh, maybe this is going to suck. I was totally drawn into it. I've seen worse acting by kids in a horror movie, so, I mean, that really didn't bother me at all. I thought the monsters were creepy as get out. Right?
Yeah,
they were just.
They were.
I mean, and so I was just, anticipating that next story, what was going to happen, what was going to pop out, and all of the gross, or just the really creepy looking, scary things that happened to these kids, and they're running around. The story was linear. It was, trying to, like a good ghost story, trying to figure out why this ghost was doing what she's doing, and so I was following it completely, and I saw Guillermo's touches through the whole thing, like you said. And I thought it was foreboding. But I do kind of agree with you, Ashley, on it trying to sort of scale, try to find its footing. Was it, YA, young kind of a film, or was it going to be horror? And maybe it had a little trouble finding its spot, but I think it falls more on the YA, side of things, so it's not gory. It's not quite as scary like The Conjuring or something like that, but I was enjoying myself. I walked out of there thinking, yeah, that kind of was creepy.
So, like, to your point with the child actors, though, or the younger actors, you can have a movie like It, for example, where it's all child actors throughout the movie, and then that one is so much more effective, I think, because of the harder rating on it.
Sure.
Whereas these kids are so shoehorned into, like, fitting into this certain rating that they couldn't really work with the material.
I think with It, though, it's a different situation because, I mean, that story is told from a child's perspective. The first half of the book is from these kids' perspective. So you really have to have strong character.
Right.
You have to have strong actors to tell that story.
Yeah.
This one you didn't. It's all about the creepiness. It's all about the scary stories. It didn't have any sort of. I mean, there was some emotional weight with the girl. I think she did a good job with all that, her mother leaving and all that kind of stuff. But. I felt like that wasn't the crux of this movie. The crux was just sort of these each individual stories and trying to figure out the mystery behind it.
I think that's interesting because I think that's where, like, Jana and I are more focusing on the actors, and I think that's why the movie didn't work.
It, huh?
And we couldn't get past it, whereas you guys are, actors, whatever, just let me see the story. So that's interesting.
What'd you
Lupe,
think?
what'd you think?
I'll agree. I mean, the performance did not bother me. I really liked the performance by Michael Garza. He plays Ramon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see, again, another Latino.
He was the best out of all of them.
I thought the girl was good.
I like the girl, too.
Her name was... Sorry, I have it. Zoe Margaret Coletti.
Yeah, I didn't mind her. She's
played
wearing glasses.
Stella.
So, hey. I'll agree there was on-the-nose dialogue, which are like, really? But okay, it's a horror movie and kids. So, I mean, I liked it. I thought the scares were really good. Usually in horror movies, you have one monster, and here you had several.
Yeah.
And you didn't know what shape or form it was going to take, and it was based on the kids' fear.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah.
So each scare was different.
Right.
So that's what I really liked.
I did like that aspect,
Yeah,
too.
because
You're
La Llorona was annoying because it was the same jump scare every single time.
Yeah.
And it annoyed the hell out of me. Yeah.
So, what was your favorite, like, monster in the movie then? Or your favorite scary one?
Shifting monster.
The Jangle Man.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh
Jangly
my
Man?
God. That was like.
Oh, what was it called?
The Jangly Man.
Mito Doty Walker is the
Yeah.
name of the story.
But he says it's the Jangly Man is the story that used to scare me to death or whatever.
The title is,
The cop's like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
that was a good line, though. I was like,
Yes. That's taken directly from John Carpenter's The Thing. You remember The Thing comes out and he's like walking around and the thing and goes, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, and I think it was a throwback to movies too.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of Halloween vibe in the beginning, and I interviewed Guillermo del Toro yesterday, and I asked him about that, and he said no. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's very similar. You have the town, and you have the radio voice, narrating.
Yeah.
So I was like, he's like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, oh, sorry, but
It's like, you made it up then.
yeah, but I agree. Didn't know what it was. Young. I was surprised when I heard at the press day yesterday. It was like, oh, is this for kids? And I'm like, Oh,
I don't think it's for young.
I would not.
No, PG. It was PG-13. I mean, 16 plus.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was PG.
No, it's PG-13.
Oh, well, then it needs to be R.
Because there are some moments. I mean, I looked away a couple
times.
There's a point where somebody's eating the body part and they don't know it.
Oh, no.
And what I liked about this movie was the suspense was prolonged, and it was a little annoying. But it was like, oh, I'm glad they did that, because at the end you appreciated it, because it's longer. You expected it at that beat. You know, you get the scare, and it kept prolonging and prolonging. I'm like, oh, come on!
Yeah,
Just bring it to me.
So I like that.
Okay.
It's kind of reminded me of the last Annabelle movie. Because again, well, not in the
Creation
way.
or Comes Home?
Comes Home.
Oh.
Just the idea. What I really loved about the movie was just all those things in that room. What did they do?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh my God. Yes.
So I remember thinking that even back when they first introduced that room, I'm like, oh God, what does that do? Oh my God, what does that do? You know. And then in that movie, you got to see it all like this. So this is the same kind of a feel, which it's a different story. You get the different monsters. So, sorry guys, we liked it.
That's all right. So
and by the way, it has an 80-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm just gonna put that.
By the way, I haven't reviewed it yet. So that's going down.
It'll be at 70 tomorrow.
And you can all blame me. So let's give our rating on it. Lupe, what would you give it?
Okay, I mean, I thought it was enjoyable. I didn't love it, but I did enjoy it, so I'll give it a B.
Yeah, me too. B.
I go with a C minus.
Oh,
Yeah,
throwing the minus in there.
I'm straddling C-/D+.
Oh, wow.
So it's not. It was so underwhelming for me, and I was. It was
So you're a fan of the books, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
tell me,
huge fan.
does it? So the books, they're just those individual stories, then that kind of like a Stephen King anthology kind of thing, right?
Kind of, yeah. It's like just basically 3 books of all these different stories that don't really tie together. So
Okay.
I mean, in a sense, it was probably difficult to put them all in one movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But
You didn't like how they kind of?
it was good how the story. I like how the story was written. I like how they put it together. I don't like the actors. That was my whole thing. I said I would have liked it if the actors were stronger. Okay. So it is what it is.
All right. Okay.
All right, so we're going to move on to The Kitchen, which is a 1970s New York gangster mob drama featuring Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, and Elizabeth Moss. So, Jana, you want to give us a description?
It's like
Mobsters, women, killing.
Yes, their husbands go to do like a robbery, and then they be a part of the Ireland mafia, and then they get caught, and then they go to jail, and the mafia is gonna help them to survive, and then in the end they're not gonna help them get help, so they need to do something to get money and everything else, and then that goes.
So Widows Part 2.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, it sounds similar.
But
it's
that
very
is in the 70s, and
Irish
this
mob.
one is in the 70s.
Yeah.
Widows, it was a little more like
Hell's
now.
Kitchen is what?
Hell's Kitchen's Irish mob, New York City. So
We didn't see it.
We didn't see
they
it.
didn't see it, so it's me and Jana.
Yeah.
It's written and directed by Andrea Berloff. And like I said, it's Melissa McCarthy. There's also one of my favorite actors, Domhnall Gleeson's in it. And
Is he a husband?
Okay, so he's kind of like a shady figure that comes in. I don't want to ruin anything, but he kind of comes in towards the middle.
Okay.
But the greatest disservice this movie does is it's an Irish mafia movie. Domhnall Gleeson's Irish, so they have him talk with a New York accent. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? I was so mad. I just love Domhnall Gleeson. But this movie was really difficult for me because there were parts of it that I thought were really good, and then there were parts of it that just were like mind-bogglingly terrible. So it was like I was halfway through it, and I'm like, maybe. And then it takes a turn, and it becomes like even more violent, and you're like, what is going on? And then at the end, you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So all in all, I don't really think it worked for me. I liked Melissa McCarthy. McCarthy's performance, and I liked Elizabeth Moss in it. And Domhnall Gleeson, of course. Tiffany Haddish was a little weird for me in this movie. I wasn't quite sure what to make of her performance.
When I left the screening yesterday, I was like, I watched last night, I had mixed feelings. I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I was like,
it exists.
I don't know. Yeah, something like that bothered me. What bothers me was Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy, really?
Yeah, I was like, I look at her like, okay, it's okay. Elizabeth Moss is great.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of action, and then sometimes I got lost. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of a weird. Tiffany is okay. I thought that it was okay, but...
Yeah,
I don't know.
I saw the trailer and I was all down for it. I mean, I thought that casting was almost, like a dream team kind of thing with the three of them, and I was really drawn in by that trailer.
But that's sometimes the problem when they put all these good actors together, and sometimes it doesn't
gel.
Good. Yeah.
Well, if the story's not good, then it doesn't matter how good the performance, how good the actors are if they can't make the story work.
Yeah. Well, that's what reminds me of Widows, because a lot of great actors and actresses, and then it was a bore fest.
Yeah. So
yeah, well, I liked Widows, but I get it. I mean, it did slog a little bit. Does this slog? Is it
a little bit? Yeah. I was just gonna ask you. Don't you think it feels long at times?
Yes.
It feels
long.
Like it could get like a 30-minute cut to it. Actually,
let's edit this.
Yeah.
Do the women ever get like their this is we're badass women now and we're gonna take over moment?
Yeah, it does. It does.
That's pretty. It happens pretty quickly in the movie.
Yeah.
And can you suspend belief because you're figuring, okay, these women are gonna go up against the mob?
No, that's the thing is they're really believable in their roles. In my opinion,
like
they're real women. But it's just something feels off for it.
Lack of directing. Sometimes they script a little
It's
something.
wonky.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's too bad.
Yeah.
I might eventually see it.
You can check it out. I mean, some people might have obviously people have varying opinions, but if you're interested in it, check it out.
Yeah.
Jana, what would you give it?
I'll give it a C.
I think so too. I'm
They like the
C.
I'm
really bad today.
All right. So we're going to talk about next The Art of Racing in the Rain. So Lupe, you saw that?
I did not see
Oh,
Yeah, me neither.
I saw this. Okay, so I'll give this a real. You saw this?
I did not.
Okay, it's me. It's
you.
the me time. Okay, so The Art of Racing in the Rain, I'm going to give you a real quick thing because I don't want to talk about it because it makes me really sad. Okay, Art of Racing in the Rain is based off a book. And it stars Milo Ventimiglia as Denny and Amanda Seyfried as Eve, his wife. Some drama stuff happens, but at the beginning of the movie, we start out with Milo adopting a dog named Enzo, who's played by Kevin Costner, who's voiced by Kevin Costner. And so it's a dog movie, so we all know those go well. That's really...
Do they?
Yeah, they go really well. So I cried for about an hour and a half out of the 2-hour runtime. So
that's why I don't watch those movies.
No, it's extremely emotional. If you're a dog person and you cry at dog stuff, you're going to sob. It's really emotional. Great performances by everybody involved. If you want to be traumatized emotionally, feel free and see it. I would give it an A, but... be warned, you need tissues.
Okay, you're going to have to talk a little bit more about this. I'm sorry, Ashley. You're going to have to talk a little more. It's based on a book.
It is based on a book.
Okay.
So
he's a race
car driver, and he is Milo is Denny Swift, a race car driver who is attempting to break into the circuit so he can race Formula One. He adopts the dog. They're all buddy-buddy. He comes to the races with them. The dog kind of talks about how he wants to be a man in his next life, and he wants to learn to race, and he talks about how much he loves being at the racetrack with Denny. And then Amanda's character comes in and kind of disrupts everything, and then life continues as it does after people get married and things change and circumstances change, and Enzo's kind of there for everything.
It's like Marley and Me.
Yeah, with racing cars. So
it is the same producer.
Can we talk about how many of these movies there are? I mean,
there's so many. I literally.
What is it about dog movies this year? There's been a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about dog movies that makes just because they're dog movies? But what?
I think it has
because I'm a cat person.
Well, I was just gonna say,
a cat movie, darn it.
It has. I think it has a wide appeal. I think in a time where everything's so divisive in this country with politics and everything else that's going on, most people love dogs. So it's a safe bet to be like, here's a movie about something everybody loves, and then let's make you really sad.
Let's love dogs.
Right. The sad part I don't want to do.
The sad part I don't want it. I actually
That's why I like Dora, because Dora is like one of these things that's just positivity.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to cry, you just can laugh, you can. But I saw the trailer for this, I went, nope.
Yeah,
I saw the poster,
that
I was
gonna
like,
say.
nope.
I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that's really sad. Really sad. And then my brother watched with me, and then there is a pilot that was from F1, and he was the one racing in the rain. He was really good. And then my brother thought, well, this is the Ayrton Senna story. I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe we should check it out.
Yeah, Scott kind of tricked me into this screening. I didn't know what we were seeing that night, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna see, we're going to Art of Racing in the Rain." When we were on the way there, I was like, "I don't know what that's about." Like, I hadn't seen the trailer or anything, and then I was like, "I hate you so much."
Was really
Yeah, we got out of it, and I literally said, like, through tears and sobbing, I'm like, "Don't ever ask me to see a dog movie. I'm done. Don't do it. I'm done." And I was like, still sobbing as I was walking to the car. So.
And then you went home and hugged your dogs.
Yeah, and then I was like, "I love you guys so much." And they're looking at me like, "What is wrong
Milo?
with you?"
Is that how you say it?
Milo Ventimiglia.
What is it about him too? This is us. That's
what I said on-
Is he
yeah,
like
yeah.
the king of pain or something?
Yeah, I said he's quickly overcoming the scene from The Lion King with Mufasa dying. Is like the most traumatic thing for my life is him and everything he does.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Ryan in the booth real quick. I just wanted to say I haven't seen the movie, but I know that sometimes dog stuff can like kind of trigger people.
Yeah.
There is a really useful website called Does the Dog Die?
Yep.
That, I mean, maybe I don't know what happens in this movie, but I would just check that out. If that's the type of thing
that's
that
a good
triggers you, you don't want to
Yeah.
risk going to it, maybe check that website out.
Yeah. Cool.
Good point.
tip.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
DoesTheDogDie.com. Yes, I've checked that website multiple times. Cool. So, Art of Racing in the Rain would get an A. Kit got me to talk more about it. So, we're also going to talk about After the Wedding. Who has seen it?
I have not seen it.
I think this is you,
Is
babe.
it? We're awesome. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, you saw it too?
Yeah,
Oh.
I saw. It'll be interesting for us to talk about it because I actually saw it when it premiered at Sundance, and I've heard since Sundance they did another cut of it. So we'll see.
really?
Because when we saw it, it was kind of this weirdly woven story that had Julianne Moore and
Michelle Williams.
and oh my gosh, I forget
Who's
the
the
girl's
guy?
name.
The husband.
Billy Crudup, and
Or
then
Crudup, right.
so Billy Crudup and Julianne Moore are married. They're very successful. They live a happy life, and they have a daughter named Grace, who's played by Abby Quinn. And this woman gets invited to Julianne's house by Julianne, to kind of get funding for
She's
an
an
orphanage.
activist, or no, that's right.
She runs an orphanage.
Right.
So Michelle Williams
In India or someplace
Yeah,
like
in
that.
India. So she comes over and is trying to get the money from Julianne Moore, and you find out that maybe their lives are more interwoven than you thought they were.
Well, the trailer kind of gives it away, so don't worry
I haven't
about
watched the trailer, so
no, it gives it away that she had it looks like she had a relationship with Billy Crudup.
Yeah, so it goes on from there, and there's all this drama that comes up, and you really can't talk about the rest of the plot because it ruins the rest of the movie.
Ruins everything.
But what I saw in Sundance was not great. It was really slow, really boring, very
Still.
just so uninteresting. Like, I was ready to leave halfway through it because it just went nowhere, which is a really, it's a shame because there's really good actors in it.
Yeah,
But
I
don't know what happened.
It's still boring. They're great. I was like, oh my god, Julianne Moore and then Michelle together.
And their
gonna be
emotional
good.
scenes are good.
They're good, but the movie drags and then drags, and then I was like,
Doesn't sound like much happens because if she comes, they have this big sort of confrontation, or they. Well, it looks like peeling off layers kind of thing, right?
And it's very heavy. Like, it's
heavy.
not. There's no levity to the story really, and it's just kind of like
zero.
And I feel like at the beginning of the movie, it doesn't ever the beginning of the movie is never really ever resolved at the end. So you're kind of like, what the hell happened there?
Who directed it?
Her husband, right?
Bart
Julianne
Freundlich?
Moore.
That's her husband.
Her
husband.
yeah.
Yeah.
What else has he done? I'm trying to think
know.
off the
I
top
can't
of my
think of
head.
anything.
I can't think
Movies.
right now. I can't think right now, but he's like
Maybe Ryan can check for us. Who else did?
I'll look. I'm looking.
Brad.
What other
I've
movies
got a
did
magic
Bart
box.
do? Magic Box.
So I mean, like was Michelle? I mean, was there someone who stood out more between any of the characters?
I mean, Julianne Moore, but she's done
good.
so many other, stories and characters that are so much more compelling.
This one is just like, it's another
like, yeah,
one.
she's
an
emotional.
additional one. Yeah.
She's emotional, and the scenes that are really emotional
And then
are
in the beginning of the
effective.
movie, that she dances on the car. I don't know if you watch it, Gloria Bell.
No,
I
Yeah,
missed
but
that.
she was like replicating some of the scenes, like because she likes to sing, drive and sing, just like Gloria Bell.
yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
The Myth of Fingerprints was one of his ones that he did. He's done some TV too, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing super, great. I don't really think you need to see it. What would you give it for a grade?
I give a C minus.
Oh, wow.
We're bad today.
We're really bad.
I would probably say that
critics.
too. Yeah,
No,
C minus.
I spoke to them, and then I spoke to Julian and Brad, and then it's like you see that they are very proud of the project because the daughter also worked on the project, on the movie. They have the friend there. They invited to be Brad, the other actor that was on the movie, and then for them they are very proud of the project, but. I almost told them,
I'm sorry. This thing you love and they're so proud of is not good.
Isn't it sad
That's
when you
an
go
awkward.
interview them and you're like, and they're so excited and you're like, oh man.
No,
Well,
I was excited, but I tried to like.
No, I mean that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
you see that how excited they are, and you're in
Yeah.
front of them, and you're like, "Oh, did you like it? Yeah." And it's like,
I need to say
Here's
that.
the thing about being a film journalist, because sometimes we don't like the movies and we have to talk to the people, and yes, sometimes we have to put on a brave face. Some people don't, though. Some people, like your husband sometimes says, I didn't really like this movie, but I mean, he says it in a nicer way than that. But and it's interesting because I recently watched an interview with Emma Thompson, and she mentioned how sometimes you guys have to come in here and actually be act as well. But I try to find at least one thing about the movie that I like, and it's usually at least I can find one thing, right?
Yeah,
A
the
scene
girl,
or
sort of,
the actress that played the daughter,
Abby
she's
Quinn,
really
she's good.
Yeah.
She's good. Even Michelle, if you isolate her, she's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on the movie, but the whole story, I don't know, it's weird, and it's like a remake of a movie that was made years ago with the same movie, but there is a twist there that is a little bit different from the first one to this one.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
C minuses from
C
us.
minus.
So Jenna is the only one who saw Brian Banks.
Yeah.
So you can talk about it a little
Yeah.
bit?
Well, how
I
about
can
Peanut? Are you explaining that
Last,
one?
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Brian Banks is a story about Brian Banks. It's an untold true story about him. He was wrongly convicted for a crime that he didn't do it, and he lost like 11 years of his life. And the movies talk about the way that the way that they try to solve his problem, the way that he trying to get to the person that accused him to say he didn't do it. And it was good. It was like I was very impressed with his performance. The Aldous Hodge.
Aldous Hodge, yeah.
And the lawyer on the case is Greg Kinnear. He always does this type of movies, and I think he's so likable. I like him on screen. So I had fun. It's very. So there was a moment that I got really angry with the not the main character, but the other character, the girl. They accuse him, and you see that he's a good person, but he was like only convicted. And also on the Sherry Shepherd, she's also on the movie, and she plays the mom.
Gotcha.
Cool.
It's good.
So what grade would you give it?
A B minus.
B minus?
Okay.
Okay.
Is that in movie theaters or?
Yeah,
is it on Netflix?
it's gonna premiere tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And the last movie that we're going to talk about is actually our movie pick of the week, and that's the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yay!
Who doesn't like peanut butter?
Yay! So the
I
Peanut
love
Butter
this
Falcon had its premiere at South by Southwest. It was directed by Tyler Nielsen and Michael Schwartz, also written by those two guys, starring Shia LaBeouf as Tyler, Dakota Johnson as Eleanor, and Zach Gottsagen as Zach. So, Kit?
Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what it's about.
Well, Zach is an individual with Down syndrome, and he's been living in an old a retirement home because his family abandoned him, and this was the place that they ended up putting him. And you know, he's very well liked, and he rooms with Bruce Dern, but he wants to live his life. He wants to be free, and he feels like he shouldn't be in this spot, in this place. Dakota Johnson plays his caseworker, or who works at the retirement home, and she's sympathetic, but at the same time, you know, he's in the system and he has to be where he is. But he manages to escape. And I think it's what, North Carolina, I think they start out in, and then end up going down the river.
Going down to Florida.
And he ends up meeting Shia LaBeouf's character, Tyler, who's sort of going through some emotional trauma himself, and he's he's in trouble with some of the locals there, and so then they're kind of on the run. And they go down the river in this homemade raft, and they end up Dakota ends up finding them. Eleanor finds them and goes with them for a little bit of time. But it's really the bond between these two young men. And I don't know. I was completely engrossed in this, and I just thought the performances were amazing. Shia LaBeouf is, you know, I know he's kind of a weird guy personally, and he's done some really crazy stuff, and there's a lot of crazy stories about him, but he's a good actor. He is. Hands down,
I think it's his best performent.
Great actor.
Yes.
Well,
and you really feel from him in this. And then, of course, Zach is just, I can't say his last name.
Sagan.
He's just very endearing, and, you know, genuine, clearly, but it's really this very genuine relationship between these two individuals, with Dakota, who again, everyone gives her a bad rap for being in the 50 Shades, maybe, but I've always kind of liked her. I don't know. I mean, she's not the greatest of actresses, but there's some stuff that she's done that I've really liked. Bad Times at El Royale, I thought she was really good in that.
She was good in that one.
And I really liked her in this. She was very, you know, underrated. She was, I mean, underscored, you know. I mean, she didn't really overplay it. And she gets involved in this sort of, you know, quest for this guy. Because basically Zach wants to be a wrestler, and he's been obsessed with this wrestler guy, this old video he's watched about 1,000 times.
The Saltwater Redneck.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
And that's kind of their journey. That's their quest to get to this guy who plays, you know, who's played by
Thomas Hayden Church.
Thank you, Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really loved this movie.
The interesting thing about this movie in particular is Honey Boy is starting to play at TIFF this year, which it played at Sundance last year. And it's interesting because this story and this film relies a lot on the characters' relationship with Shia and Zach. And you can say the same thing about Honey Boy. It relies on the relationship between Shia and Noah Jupe's character. So once you guys see that, I'll be really interested, because I think that's where his niche is finding these relationship type movies where he has to really have an authentic relationship with the character. So yeah, I loved it. I agree with everything Kit said. I think it was sweet, and Shia was great, and the relationship is really what is the heart of the film, and it's just definitely a movie you should check out.
Oh,
Jana?
sure.
No, I agree. The only actress I didn't care about Dakota on the movie. I just think like that she was
like,
I liked
okay.
her.
She was okay. She
I
was
liked
okay.
her.
No, she was okay, I think. I don't know.
I think she woke up in the third act, because in the third act we saw a little more emotion. I don't know. It was
she's
just like, it was
trying
weird.
to find him. And,
No.
yeah, anyway, okay.
No,
How about you, Lupe?
Did you?
No, yeah, but then I think Zach and Shia, they're like great, and also like the cinematography. I like the way that they put.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and then everything is the way that they try to connect. And Zach like, no, I need to, like following him, like it's great.
Yeah, and there's certain scenes I think that shine really, like like the scene with the swimming. Yeah, it's like there's just like certain scenes that are really powerful. So I loved it. But Lupe.
Yeah, I loved it too, that relationship. And people are complaining there's not enough original films. This one is really, really original. And the fact that you see an actor with Down syndrome is really, really special, I think, for the community out there to see. And I don't think anybody's really had this kind of, well, I mean, Rain Man, but, you know, Dustin Hoffman is...
That's autistic.
But he's
That's
not
a different...
Autistic, but I mean, it's not an actor, you know?
Yeah.
But I love the relationship and the fact that Tyler is treating this boy like just another human. And he has to explain to Eleanor, like, don't treat him like a child, like he's sick. You know, treat him like a human being, like you would treat anybody else. And that's what I really, really loved about the film, that he's treating them just like any other kid. who kind of, grew on him, because initially he's like, all right, kid, just be quiet and just follow me, because they're taking this adventure together to go to basically the same location. So I really enjoyed that, and it was just heartwarming. And usually I'm out the door at the screening, but I sat there going, that was so beautiful. And I was just really impressed by Shia's performance.
Yeah, I was too. He really
he really nailed it. It was just like, he's very heartwarming, and I don't know, he was just, I was so affected by him, by his performance.
It was good.
Yeah.
Because he's troubled as well,
Yeah.
and I think he finds, he sees in Zach a kindred spirit, and and you were saying about the cinematography, it kind of reminded me of home. I'm from Florida,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of it.
So I know. It's beautiful.
I felt a little homesick for the ocean, but yeah, it's beautifully shot, and there's just some moments where they're just literally just got their feet dangling in the water going down the river, and they're not saying anything, and I thought it's just the poignancy of all of that. Yeah.
All right, so let's give our grades for it. Lupe?
A+.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. A.
Yeah, A. All right, so we agree. Thank you guys for listening. We're going to listening/watching, however you're checking out the show. We're going to go through and have our panelists say where you can find them again. Lupe?
All right, find me on Twitter at Cinemovie, on Instagram at CinemovieTV, same for Facebook, and follow me on the website cinemovie.tv.
Kit Bowen, you can follow me at TheMovieKit and on ScreenPix.com.
Jana, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Jana on Camera, and my website is janaoncamera.com.
And I'm Ashley Menzel. You can find me at We Live Entertainment, and we're on Twitter at Ashley G. Menzel. Make sure you check out next week's episode, where we're going to be talking about Blinded by the Light, Good Boys, Where'd You Go, Bernadette, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged, and Angry Birds 2. Bye!
Bye!